Meat Boy MMA in all caps, take it to the grill.
Let's go, baby! Whose show is this? Episode 252, it's UFC EDMONSHAHBAZYTON. Low-key, kind of a duster, especially compared to last weekend's absolute bangers. We'll recap last week, some quick tidbits, but overall, your boy went 3-3. You went 4-2. We'll start on the meatlock. The meatlock did not cash. Curtis Blades, I don't want to say he got smoked by Josh Hokett. It was definitely back and forth. Honestly, probably one of the best heavyweight meatdowns we've seen in the last 5 years. But either way, we're on the wrong end of a unanimous decision. What surprised you most about Josh Hokett, and any thoughts on the L of meatlock?
Yeah, no, man, what an absolute upsetting, yeah, that was a crazy fight. I can't believe it went decision. After the first round, if someone said, oh, this will go decision, I'm like, you're on drugs. But it went decision somehow. Curtis just fell short, just seemed a little too slow, and just like couldn't finish him. The guy was tough as nails.
Yeah, the dude was tough as nails. Respect to Josh Hokett. Obviously, we thought that Blades would Wetzel with cheese him, but ultimately we're on the wrong end again. Either way, Aaron Pico versus Pitbull was a good one. We both were all over that. We called Pico. You had Landwehr over Cub Swanson. I bought the story. Cub Swanson goes out on top. Pretty cool moment for him. Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. Not a lot to recap. You picked JV Baseball. I had Johnny Walker, but one of the biggest snoozers of the year. And then I did want to touch on the co-meet. It was Paulo Costa, the Eraser, versus, as you said, Azamit Murnatso-Lokanov. And you happen to be all over that one because Eraser erased him pretty easily, and you called that as a pretty much 2-1 dog. So what were your thoughts on Paulo, and what do you think's next for the Eraser?
You know, Paul looked great. I mean, I kind of Paulo is just such an accomplished top fiver for Azato. Not so meat locking off. Just we don't know, and it's like I think Paul's gonna steamroll right through him, and that's kind of what he did. Finish him with a KO, beautiful setup, and I really hope that he fights Izzy. I feel like that just totally makes sense. He's peaking. Izzy's on the downturn. He's gonna knock out Izzy probably first round, just like Piper did. So that would be an awesome matchup if they set that up.
Yeah, would love to see that. You mentioned earlier how Paulo Costa wasn't quite yet Izzified, so this would be the great test to see if he can get that one back, obviously, about 5 years later. So great call by you. Meat event was Yuri versus Carlos Ulberg. Ulberg's knee essentially explodes, and Jiri says what did he say? He showed him some mercy. I don't know. I'm of two minds of how that fight unfolded. What did you make of Carlos Ulberg's comeback KO? Because to me, that knee injury seemed like one of the gnarlier ones we've ever seen, and because of how gnarly it was, Ulberg's knockout has to be up there as like one of the greats, because that was a come from the depths KO sleeper, and I think Ulberg deserves his flowers for that. So, what did you make of the meat event and the narrative surrounding it?
Yeah, no, Carlos Ulberg, I mean, he was basically Dunzo Balonzo. I could not believe it. I had him winning that fight pretty easy, and it did not seem easy. But yet then he did it easily with that YOLO knockout like that Yuri just gave to him. So very bizarre way to go out. I feel bad for Yuri, but props to Carlos. I mean, he's got absolute bombs in those fists. That's one thing we cannot take away. But yeah, I thought it was gonna be way more competitive. It was kind of weird seeing the knee kind of tweak and go out. Um, I'm curious if they do a rematch though. That'd be kind of fun. I would love to see both healthy, no freak injuries, how that actually would go, and no mercy shown by one of the opponents.
Yeah, who knows what's next? I feel like Yuri's going to go to a dark place probably for a long time, and we'll see what sort of spiritual awakening he arrives to this time around. Because, God, imagine, I mean, it was going to be one of the best finishes of his career, and now becomes just the worst, most brutal loss of his entire UFC tenure. So, crazy outcome. Either way, we both picked Ulberg all of that one. Any last thoughts on UFC 327, or you trying to swoop us through into EDMONSHAHBAZYTON?
Yeah, let's go straight to Shabazi Bum.
Swap us through then. You see the text. John Castaneda, Sexy Mexi, is taking on Mark Vologdin, aka the Slogger. Mark will do it, who is 12-4-1, making his debut from a contender series. Absolute war. He lost, got absolutely smoked, ate a million shots, and proved to be a durable meathead. But beyond that, the dude just slogs forward, eats shots, and otherwise doesn't offer much offensively. So we think that Sexy Mexi, as a near 10-fight UFC veteran, a seasoned guy at this point, should have the edge basically all around against the slogger Mark Will Do It. So, what are your thoughts on this meatlock? How do you think Sexy Mexi gets this one done? And is he going to finish, Mark?
Yeah, no, Mark will do it is definitely getting smoked by Sexy Mexi. I think Sexy Mexi will knock him out first, maybe second round, but I just think this is a experienced giant gap where Sexy Mexi has gotten a lot of experience in the UFC compared to his opponent, and I think this is a hype beast that these guys usually get derailed right away, so this is a pretty easy meat lock.
Yeah, it's an easy meatlock for sure. The resumes are just quite different, right? John Castaneda is a dude who's been in there with some pretty solid guys. He just fought to a split decision versus Chris Gutierrez. Should have been a victory, in my opinion. And he's also been in there with Muin Gafarov, got a win over him. Losses to Daniel Santos, Daniel Marcos, and Nathaniel the Prospect Wood. So he's been in there with some super tough dudes. Mark Will Do It, meanwhile, has fought a bunch of 500 fighters, has a bunch of losses already, and again, just kind of slogs forward, eats shots, and takes one too many to the dome. So I think finish could be in the works for Sexy Mexi, if not a dominant decision. But if you're going with the Sexy Mexi finish, do you think he gets it done early and often?
Yeah, no, I think he does get it early and often. I think it'll be under two to be honest. But I'm thinking first round.
Yeah, similar fate like the one Eddie Wineland received against Sexy Mexi. I'll go decision officially, but either way, it's a meatlock. You see the text. We'll keep it simple. Throw down an easy 226 to net 200. We had the heavy hammer blades hiccup of last week. We are now chilling in the red, but hopefully the Castaneda Sexy Mexi meatlock will get this one back in the green. So, any last thoughts on the Sexy Mexi meatlock over Mark Vologden?
No, I think this is an absolute lock. Sexy Mexi definitely getting the finish over Mark will do it.
Yeah, it's easy light work. Let us know in the comments if you agree with the meat lock or if you're taking the mark lock. But either way, swap us through. It's Charles Jourdain, a hometown affair, taking on Kyler Phillips, the Matrix, who is 6-3 in the UFC, but in my opinion has taken a sort of left turn. And I'm curious to see how he responds in this one against Charles Air Jourdain, who's a 500 fighter in the UFC, 17-8-1. But he's fighting motivated in his backyard and is a slight minus 133 favorite to the Major 6 plus 127 dog. So, what do you make of this co-meet? You take an Air Jourdain at home, or do you still buy the Kyler Phillips story and believe that this is the opportunity he needs to get back on track?
Yeah, no, it's crazy to see how Kyler Phillips was, low key peaking on the picograms, and then now he's getting absolutely snuffed by
Yo, your
Rob.
mic's cutting out.
Oh, sorry. He's peaking on the picograms, and now he's getting absolutely snuffed by Fabron, and Oliveira, which I mean, not the worst losses, but uh, he's just on a downtrend. While you have Jourdain, 2 fight lose streak, now he's on a 2 fight win streak for solid guys. Davey Grant, Victor Henry, solid dudes, both submission. This is gonna be a fun fight, and honestly, I think I gotta go with Kyler on this. I think Kyler might have the better grappling. I think Jourdain, he's on a grapple win streak where his last 3 wins are all by submission, guillotine. And I don't think he's going to get Kyler. I think Kyler's too fast, too sharp on the feet, great wrestling too, to where I think Kyler is going to piece him apart. And I don't know. Usually I'm a Jourdain fanboy, but something in my gut is telling me that Kyler is going to get this upset.
Yeah, good stuff. And as a juicy dog, this could be a good opportunity for him to come back. And to that point, I mean, Kyler Phillips is a dude who's never even been finished, let alone submitted. And if Jourdain has had a lot of YOLO subs lately, that might not be an available pathway versus a guy as slick on the ground as the Matrix. But that last fight against Davey Grant, Charles Jourdain, he's basically slept him on the feet. If you remember, he cracked him, straight jab, shattered his face basically, and ultimately finished him when Davey Grant was incapacitated on the ground. But that fight was basic. The finish rather was basically started by some stand-up. So I'm curious to see if Jourdain can land those heavy shots on Kyler Phillips early, because Kyler Phillips, I mean, I don't know. That last fight against Vinicius, the lock dog Oliveira, really just kind of spoiled the vibe for me, because to me he was eating a lot of shots, and I worry about when this fight is on the feet. So are you at all concerned? I mean, I think we agree that perhaps the grappling gets nullified in this contest, but when this fight is on the feet, do you think Air Jourdain will have the advantage, or will Kyler Phillips even be better there?
That's a good question. Jourdain's definitely gonna have the reach, but I don't know if he's gonna have the speed. And we saw Jourdain get absolutely ragdolled by Nathaniel Woods, and I think that's might how this goes because Nathaniel Wood and Kyler Phillips are pretty similar on the speed and the size, in my opinion. Maybe Kyler's a little taller, but he's quick and fast, and he's a pretty good striker. And so I think I think that I kind of see a Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood 2.0 vibe coming.
Yeah, good stuff. I can see it going that way for sure. I've basically been a coin flip on this matchup, but I'm gonna ride Charles Air Jourdain at home. I just feel like that if it becomes a dog fight, and I assume that this fight might be, I like Air Jourdain to do just enough in at least 2 rounds to edge the hometown decision. Because I don't know, I don't see a world where either of these guys are getting a finish, and as a result, I think it's gonna be bloody. I think it's gonna be a war, and that style of fight to me will be advantageous to Air Jourdain. But I like your points. I see why some might prefer Kyler Phillips in this one. Any last thoughts on this co-meet, Matrix versus Air?
No, this is a fun fight nonetheless.
Let us know if you're taking Air Jourdain over the Matrix, but swap us through. It's the last one. It's Gilbert Burns plus 252 Dorino taking on Mike Maylott. Sometimes Mike Maylock, sometimes even Mike Meatlock, but he's 6-1 in the UFC. Only lone defeat was to Neil Magny when he was winning for about 13 minutes, gassed out, then got smoked and finished himself. But Gilbert Burns, we know, is 13-9, but obviously is on the downturn of his career, right? I mean, Gilbert Burns hasn't won a fight in a long time post COVID. You'd have to fact check me, but it's been pretty rough for Dorino. And in this one, I was curious to see how he's a plus 252 dog, but I saw a poll on YouTube, 70% or 70K responses, and like 75% was picking Gilbert Burns. So, what do you make of these odds? Do you think that Gilbert Burns does have some life as a plus 252 dog, or does this have Mike Meatlock written all over it?
Yeah, no, might lock the mic on this one, especially, home country, but man, I don't know. Minus 323. Where's the respect for Gilbert Burns? Like, this is crazy to see Gilbert Burns, kind of on his tail end of his career. He's probably going to lose, but that being said, Gilbert Burns is an absolute dog lock in my book. I mean, what is Mike Meatlock going to do? Submit Gilbert Burns? If he submits him, then Mike Meatlock is the GOAT. I just don't see it happening. I think Gilbert Burns is going to pull him apart, stand up, grapple, doesn't matter. Meatlock doesn't have a stand up. Gilbert Burns kind of has a stand up, so Gilbert Burns wins on that. It goes down to the grappling. Like, it hurts my brain whenever I think about how Paddy the Baddy submitted Tony Ferguson. Is this what we're about to see, or is Gilbert Burns still the real deal? I don't know.
It's a great parallel. I love the question, and it could happen. I mean, you never know. Mike Meatlock is a big dude. I think he surprised both of us in that last fight against Kevin Holland, where he picked up a unanimous decision. It wasn't like the flashiest or most impressive performance, but it was thorough and it was dominant for sure. So I don't know. Perhaps Mike Meatlock is just a dude who sneakily keeps getting better and better. But I like the points you make about Gilbert Burns, because this is a dude who's never been submitted, right? Obviously, he's been getting smoked a lot lately. Last win was 2023 versus Gamebred Masvidal, but the 4 losses are to Bilal Muhammad, the champ, Jack Della Maddalena, the champ, and then Sean Brady and Michael Morales, who are like the top 2 dudes. So it's like Gilbert Burns perhaps is better than what the recent resume suggests, and I don't think for a second that Mike Meatlock is anywhere in the conversation with those 4 dudes that beat him recently. So if this fight does, how do you see this fight playing out? Like, is it something that's going to end up on the ground? Is it when on the feet, Mike Meatlock going to just have the advantage? Like, how does this fight play out, and how long does it last?
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna play out a Grammy long decision, maybe a KO, TKO finish in the end by Gilbert Burns, but I just don't see Mike, uh, submitting Gilbert Burns. Like, that's crazy to me. But hey, we saw Patty submit Tony Ferguson, so who knows?
Is there any other pathway for Mike Meatlock? Could he perhaps TKO Gilbert Burns? And is there any chance, any world where he can win a 5-round decision over Gilbert Burns?
5 round, that would be mind blowing. KO, I just don't see it. I don't see him being able to outpace Gilbert Burns, but I don't know. Maybe the kid is 34, Gilbert Burns is like 44, so like it would not surprise me if Gilbert Burns maybe just one, 2 arms and 2 legs out the door and just is here for a paycheck. He's on a 4 fight losing streak. It wouldn't surprise me, but I have a little hope that he was just fighting the top 4 best guys in the division and might meet Meatlock, anti-Meatlock, just ain't top 4, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's good points. I like anti-Meatlock a lot. Dude, I've been going back and forth. I do want to pick Gilbert Burns this one, but I just fear that at 40 years old, to your point, he's 1 foot out the door. And with that, I think that Mike Proper Meatlock probably wins a decision this one. I honestly think this fight Looks a lot like the Kevin Holland contest, Mike MEATLOCK versus Kevin Holland, and instead is across 5 rounds. As long as he doesn't gas out, I don't think Gilbert Burns is going to be fast enough to land heavy shots on Mike MEATLOCK, and as a result, I just can see Mike MEATLOCK staying on the outside, chipping away at Gilbert Burns' legs, making this a kind of snoozer, low key, but ultimately one that favors him in that sort of stylistic matchup. So I'll go Mike MEATLOCK, and I'm going by decision. Any last thoughts on this meat event?
No, I mean we went from peak UFC card, great job to the UFC, to absolute Dusty Dinkelman 2.0 Shabazi Bum. So I don't know, not
Yeah,
surprised, but also surprised.
yeah, my fault. It's picogram to Shabazi Bum for sure. Any last thoughts on UFC Shabazi 10 episode 252?
No, Shabazi 10 252 is the Shabazi.